Okay, we are set, so I'm turning it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Sanford, and thank you, Tom, and good morning, afternoon, and evening to all. We've all had many teachers in our lives. There were the professional teachers in our formal school years, and many more people who may not have been teachers per se, but from whom we've learned many things. And of course, we are taught a great deal through our own observations and experiences in life and from books and other media. Some teachers have lasting influence. To this day, I remember Mrs. Connolly, my kindergarten teacher, and Mr. Dale, my fifth grade teacher, and a certain chemistry lab instructor when I was a college freshman, for examples. In my memory, a common denominator among them was their enthusiasm for what they did and their genuine care for their students. My wife, Pamela, retired last month from her career as a teacher in our local public elementary school system. And I'm sure Mrs. Gray endeared herself to many little ones whose hearts and minds she touched over the years. To teach is to impart knowledge. But the teachers we remember most fondly are the ones who not only taught us, but touched us. Most new learning experiences require new language. Even in elementary school arithmetic, terms like hundreds column, tens column, and ones column are concepts described in words that are new to children. Remember your introduction to electrical theory in school? Terms like ohm, ampere, and volt come from the names of the physicists who observed and defined certain electrical properties and behaviors. There were no other words in English or any other language then by which to call those discoveries. They were new. The words have become common vocabulary in modern times, of course. Probably few, if any of us, think of Italian physicist Alessandro Volta when we buy a 9-volt battery at the store. In general, the purpose of language is to communicate. Language provides symbolic means of self-expression, of sharing ideas, of giving the implicit and invisible more explicative and visible form. When existing words are insufficient to convey new concepts, we invent specialized terminology. In recent years, we've all added to our everyday vocabularies lots of words like digital, RAM, pixel, gigabyte, 5G, algorithm, cyber attack, AI, and hundreds more, and more all the time, it seems. Over centuries of human history, there have been great teachers who have touched the hearts of billions of human beings. 4 who are prominent among these are the the Prophet Muhammad, Jesus Christ, Lao Tzu, and Gautama Buddha. They spoke the languages of their times and people, and today we have some of their teachings translated into English. Mostly, as far as we can tell, they used commonly known words, but they formulated them in new ways in an attempt to convey profound meaning. You do not do evil to those who do evil to you, but you deal with them with forgiveness and kindness. From morning until night, and from night until morning, keep your heart free from malice toward anyone. You will not enter paradise until you believe, and you will not believe until you love one another. Those are quotations attributed to the Prophet Muhammad. They may remind Westerners of teachings of Jesus that have come down to us in the Bible. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. The second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And this is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. Of the numerous wise sayings of ancient Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, here are two. Kindness in words creates confidence. Kindness in thinking creates profoundness. Kindness in giving creates love. A leader is best when people barely know he exists. When his work is done, his aim fulfilled, they will say, "We did it ourselves." And Gautama Buddha is said to have said, quote, "Silence the angry man with love. Silence the ill-natured man with kindness. Silence the miser with generosity. Silence the liar with truth." If you propose to speak, always ask yourself, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? However many holy words you read, however many you speak, what good will they do you if you do not act upon them? Well, these and similar teachings have been around for generations. A couple more contemporary examples are American poet and author Maya Angelou's courage is the most important of all virtues, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently. Courage relates to heart. And DeWitt Jones, former National Geographic photographer and a down-to-earth wise man, in my view, whose central tenet is, celebrate what's right with the world. Now, people may say they believe or don't believe such teachings. As Buddha said, what good does it do us if we do not act on them. The human condition continues to be rife with hatred, violence, depravity, bigotry, iniquity, resentment. We could make a long list. Empirically, it's easy to argue that just having lofty and noble teachings available is not enough. I've been thinking about the distinction between a teacher and a mentor. A mentor, a wise advisor, is more than an imparter of knowledge. I looked it up. The word comes from mentor, the friend of Odysseus, and advisor of Telemachus, son of Odysseus and Penelope, in Homer's The Odyssey. The name mentor appears to be an agent noun of the Greek word mentos, intent, purpose, spirit, passion. In the term's ordinary usage, a mentor is usually someone you know in person, someone with whom you have personal connection. Having a personal relationship facilitates gaining an understanding of intent, purpose, spirit, passion, an introduction to the subtler essences of a thing, behind or above and beyond what's immediately visible. This is how we get it. Surrounding everything, including the words used to represent things, is its aura of meaning. Through the aura, we touch the spirit. Or to put it another way, spirit is known at the level of human consciousness when there is sufficient medium of connection between them. Countless human beings earnestly endeavor to know God, whatever and whoever God is. But unless there is the connecting medium, all that's possible are beliefs about something separate, distant, and imaginary. Some people don't want to believe in that sort of God, and I don't blame them. About 65 years ago, Richard Thompson, a student and friend of Yoronda, initiator of the spiritual movement Emissaries of Divine Light, suggested a new word, pneumoplasm, as a name for the something that connects spirit and form. It's formed of the Greek roots pneuma, meaning air or spirit, and plasm, meaning substance. In the Bible and other sacred texts, the word is translated into English as firmament and heaven had this meaning originally, but those words were usurped for other purposes. Firmament to refer poetically to the expanse of space beyond planet Earth, and heaven to a place to which good religious people go after they die. Throughout human history, every real spiritual teacher or mentor has been at pains to find words and ways to communicate the truth they themselves experienced. Yoranda and others developed a nonverbal means of spiritual communication called attunement. To experience attunement, at least at first, requires an adept practitioner, mentor. However, and how many of those are around? Words in visual or audible form can accommodate more scalable spiritual communication at the usual levels of human consciousness. Unfortunately, so many words tend to be stuck in people's minds with rather ossified interpretations. And it's challenging to squeeze new life through them. People who long to know the truth must, of necessity, be fluid and flexible about word meanings. Maybe now and then an altogether new word is needed, like neoplasm. But it's much more about tuning in to the aura of words as expressed by one who knows. Maybe at first mentors speak to us in words we think we already know, but to deeply understand, we must come to know for ourselves what moves the mentor's tongue. The human world can seem a pretty crazy place, right? And people everywhere tend to focus on and be moved by what's deemed wrong. What's wrong gets people's attention. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with him and her and them? What's wrong often, I'd say almost always, gets people riled up. Just look at what those politicians are doing. I have friends who are all the time upset by what they're told is going on. Do you and I get riled up by what we see on TV or the internet? We're wise to consider the sources and purposes of many of the so-called news reports we see and hear. You know, they might all be fake news. I don't say this cynically, but to take a different look at things. There's vastly more going on that we don't hear about than we do. Yoranda, 20th century mentor to many and teacher to many more, made this pithy proclamation. That which is right in you is the starting point. That which is wrong in you is beside the point. Now, some may think, hey, wait a minute. You're saying what's wrong doesn't matter? That's Pollyannish. How naive. That's not the real world. Okay, let's wait that minute and unrile, if that's a word. It's not that we shouldn't care, but that we should care so much that we live and act in ways that allow something altogether different to appear. To do that we must start with what's right. In what isn't, there's no foundation to build on. This perspective's been around a long time. In the book of Philippians in the biblical New Testament is this admonishment. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. We generate pneumoplasm by revering and expressing spirits of divine origin. This connecting heavenly substance is the necessary medium through which spirit acts to make all things new. And that creative process always and ever begins with what's right in our minds and hearts. So we see all these wise teachings aren't about being good. They're about being who we really are. Spiritual beings having a human experience on earth. Of the spiritual mentors I've been blessed to know, the greatest was Martin Cecil. Decades ago, he penned a poem of simple words and eternal verity. Any moment. Any moment of hating, any moment of lying, any moment of resentment is a moment of dying. Any moment of loving, any moment of giving, any moment of thankfulness is a moment of living. All our moments add together like the digits in a sum, and the answer tells us plainly whether life or death shall come. In every moment that we love and give and are thankful, we generate heavenly substance, pneumoplasm, and live. In every moment we don't, we experience symptoms of diminishing life until eventually there's no more. Malachi McCourt, Irish-American actor, writer, politician, and younger brother of author Frank McCourt, hit the nail precisely on the head when he said, "Resentment is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die." How deeply do I care about what's of paramount importance? Will only be consistently loving and giving and thankful when expressing those spirits and others resonant with them matters more to us than anything else. And certainly far more than the things that people get upset about. All the wrong in the world. Let's not let our hearts be troubled. We understand why that matters. Even when the earth beneath our feet trembles, we're unmoved. Let's be immensely thankful for whoever is or was the greatest spiritual teacher and mentor, the most inspirational spiritual leader that we've each ever known. Now, in these times, more than ever, we must more than admire, love, and emulate them in our own ways, in our own places. It is each of ours to be that leader. In any and every moment. I think that draws to a close what I have to say this morning, and I would invite anyone who wishes to add to the conversation.
John, this is Pendel. Your words this morning remind me of a word, and that is oneness. Oneness is a big word. It's not half of two-ness, not a third of three-ness, not a quarter of four-ness. It is encompassing everything. And we have the privilege of living in oneness. Our Creator is, one, from what I can tell, all for oneness. Our Creator is oneness. And what you have spoken of this morning, I think, is the various faces of oneness. The roads to learning, the words to leading, the words to perfection, the words that are non-comparative. In our language, we have all these comparative phrases, more or less, past and future, the biggest and the smallest. We have a tendency, I do, to use non-comparative words in a comparative way. Very perfect things. Most good. Very immaculate. As if the words themselves aren't big enough. They need adjectives to fuel them somehow, I wonder. And my point is, the language that you spoke of this morning is a current of spirit. And I long for that. And I live for that. And I want to manifest and express that. And that's what you brought this morning, is a face of God which sees oneness, nothing less, and no need for anything more, because it's everything. It's the eternal present moment. It is the infinite universe. And I thank you for this space of consciousness that you brought this morning in your words. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Pendel.
John, I loved what Pendel was saying. And just before we started this time together, I was listening to a recording that Pendel made, One Shall We Worship, which he sang most gloriously. And to offset his words were beautiful images of the earth. And I thought here was something so glorious that it inspired in my heart such a love for the one who was offering this praise to the Lord. And that is what brings oneness. It's as we imbue our worlds with our love, with our delight, with our thankfulness, that it's almost, we can't help but become one with that. And each one of us has been given talents that we can utilize, and it's a joy to utilize the talents that we've been given, and it's such a joy to share in the talents that other people are offering into the world, so that the Lord can be magnified through each one of us. So I am so grateful for what you have offered and for the love that can bind us together in oneness as we move forward. Thank you.
It's kind of a balancing act. This is John LeBaron on Denman, and I want to thank you for your, John, for your wonderful balance in so evident in your living and expression. And this is another example of that, what you've shared with us today. And I'm balancing between my enthusiasm for expressing and acknowledging my agreement with you and my enthusiasm in expressing that, because I know that is so important to not hold back, to give that acknowledgement. But I also don't want to get in the way of someone else who has their heart bursting open with that kind of acknowledgement and enthusiasm. Also, I love hearing my cohorts in this way, as I've just been loving and expanding all the more with everyone who's spoken, starting with Pendel, and just echoing the appreciation for that. And I just love to be a part of as we all are, of this surge of building energy, focused and one. Yes, one. So thank you so much.
Thanks,
John,
Josh.
oh, this is Joyce. I loved our hour, and when you were reading the different quotes from the various mentors, spiritual leaders throughout history, the underlying tone and wisdom was related to the heart. And opening up to that which is higher. First of all, loving the Lord, what that means is something greater than what we've known before. And then consequently, there is the opening up to others in love. And I've been thinking about this relative to the substance you were talking about, pneumoplasm. I mean, this is a technology that we don't talk about much, but I've been experiencing in myself relative to the light. in a physical sense, we see light coming in and we register it through our eyes and it illuminates this room and we can move about at a physical level. At the spiritual level, there's illumination that the light comes through us, through this medium, to be able to see more deeply and other levels of interaction in the world. Our interactions with people, we feel the atmosphere, we see the reality of who they are behind the ego role. A sunset is far more magnificent than we've ever known before. I've found in my experience sometimes I'm overwhelmed in my heart for the beauty and magnificence of what's there. And I think at the same time, thank you that I have these capacities to get one tiny little experience of something so magnificent and know that there is so much more that needs to enlarge in this capacity of seeing. The road signs that you gave before us and the beautiful poem of Martin's of living this life is not just words, it's an actual experience of moving into a deeper understanding of who we are. And as the light that comes through us has an opportunity to see in greater ways, we start to change the world before us and for each other. So there's I think there's so much more yet through the depth of our own experience that is waiting to be seen as we come back to that first great commandment: love the Lord thy God with all, and love thy neighbor as thyself. So thank you, John. It's been a beautiful hour.
John, this is Bill Bay, and thank you for our time together today. I appreciated the statement you made that we are spiritual beings having a human experience on earth. And I think as we generate more of the spiritual substance that you mentioned, that we have a deeper and a greater understanding of exactly what this means. We're aware that we're here to take spiritual responsibility for our worlds. Any true spiritual mentor that we've known has always said, take responsibility for yourself. I'll set an example and I'll be an inspiration, but when it comes right down to it, I'm not going to carry you over the threshold. You have to make this shift in your own consciousness to one who is the spiritual being that is in expression on earth. So I thank you for our time together, and I gladly accept this responsibility that you pointed out, the responsibility of letting the essences of true spirit be on earth through me. So thank you, John.
Thanks, Bill.
I'm thankful too for all of these steps along the way. I'm thinking of the steps of enlightenment with the emphasis on light, moving toward that light. And John, you spoke of a teacher and a mentor. I was thinking a teacher is one that says, do as I say. You know, we learn all these theories of belief. And a mentor is getting closer to the light. Do as I do. Yes, there's example, follow example, and try it out. Try to understand what it is to do that. But as you were saying, we have to pass through those levels of enlightenment. So we get to the point of really knowing, and that is leadership. And knowing is resonating with the soul that has been with us from the beginning. And in these steps to enlightenment, the purpose is to live in the light, as you were saying. Be uncluttered with all of the resentments and fate and all of the things of the human nature world, but live in the light of being. Thank you, John.
I've become increasingly cognizant of how everything depends on the substance of heaven, of pneumoplasm being sufficient and of sufficient clarity and quality. As I behave in ways that are generative, I see heaven around me. I see through heaven. And I see things in a true light. All of the ills and lacks and so forth in people's experience are because of insufficient connecting of substance of heaven. So spirit and the source of life and love and everything that has value cannot make it through. And here we are with the awareness that we share and words that are adequate to consider it together. But behind that, to feel the heavenly aura, the meaning of the spirited expression. That's what fills my heart in this moment, and through it, the light pours out. Well, thank you all. This has been a very sweet and substantial time.
Thank you, one and all, for your focus and creative participation today. We'll gather again in 2 weeks on Sunday, July 21st with Sanford Barron. Adios, amigos. Vaya con Dios.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.